record. And actually, I'll start, and I'll choose Violetta to speak. I want to kind of bring up something. Yeah, so what I wanted to bring up was that Priyanka had dropped out of the circle, and she just like totally just dropped out, wouldn't communicate. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up, and hey, Jenna, just bring that up and maybe discuss it a little bit.
So you want to start with kind of a difficult conversation about one of the members of the developing team dropping out and just kind of dropping out of any type of communication. That would be Priyanka.
The issue was, she had conflict with, an issue with Colin. We have the empathy circle as sort of our core practice, and I had sent out an email about it. To be on the team, you got to be willing to have an empathy circle with everyone in the group. That's sort of core to what we do. And I had talked with her previously, and she said she was willing to, after she gave her presentation, to do an empathy circle with Colin.
Part of kind of the very few ground rules for this community that have been set up is the empathy circle. So people participate in those empathy circles. Who reached out to Priyanka. She agreed to have an empathy circle after her presentation, but then that didn't happen.
Yeah, and then I sort of reached out and said, well, let's set that up. And she said, I don't want to do that. And then I said, well, let's just have an empathy buddy call with you and I. And then she just like totally, just sort of dropped out. And I think you reached out to her as well. And then she didn't respond to you. So that's just kind of the situation.
So you're telling the story afterwards. You reached out to her a couple of times. I reached out to her a couple of times, but she told you no, and she never responded to me.
Yeah. And so that's why I had sent out the email about, just so the ground rules for the design team is, if there's a conflict, an issue comes up, that's absolutely fine, because that gives us actually an opportunity to use the empathy circle practice to kind of work it out and put it into practice. So that's just kind of one of the basic ground rules of, working together.
So that was your motivation behind sending that email. And you kind of expect to have conflicts in any team. But people participating in this empathy design team, or maybe other empathy design teams, should be willing to engage in some process.
Yeah, and so I'd asked Colin if he would take over the self-empathy part, because that's the topic he's really interested in. He was interested in doing that, but he kind of just wanted to, sort of discuss it with everyone in the group.
So you reached out to Colin after Priyanka dropping out of the team, and you asked him if he wants to take over the self-empathy portion of the training. And Colin said that he's willing to discuss that with the team.
Yeah, and if anyone else wants to reach out to Priyanka, email her, say, hey, would you like an empathy buddy call? That would be great. And I did send her an email saying, at any point, if you want to get involved again, glad to do just a one-on-one empathic listening with you to hear, what's going on for you. So that's sort of the next step.
So the next step is to keep that door open. You reached out to her and said, hey, whenever you want to come back, I'm open to a buddy call, but also inviting anybody here that would be interested, would be willing to reach out to her to do so. And maybe she will be more responsive.
Yeah, I feel heard. Thanks.
Colin, could I talk to you, please? Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm mostly thinking of the overall process of this designing, of this developing of the training, defining empathy, and what that overall process looks like at this point. And last week, Edwin and I chatted a little bit, and I said there's a definite fatigue. We're getting tired. So there's a lot of excitement, but I'm also thinking there's a lot of fatigue. So I'm just wondering what could be done. I think a definite vacation of at least a month is in order from these meetings. I'll stop here.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is that you're concerned, you're thinking about the overall process of the Defining Empathy project, and you're thinking that there may be some fatigue amongst members of the team, and there's also excitement, of course, but does this fatigue and maybe a month vacation may do us good?
So that's what I was thinking, but also I'm excited to see things moving forward, and maybe all of us coming back, however long that vacation would be, with revamped portions and then overall design of the training. So that I'm kind of excited for the creative process that's going forward and what that would look like.
So I'm hearing that you're excited about how it could be more creative in the future, but you think that by having this vacation, that we could come back with our parts of the training revamped, and it sounds like this is something that we'd like to do.
Okay, I think your mic is kind of in and out from time to time, or at least for me, it could be on my end. But thank you, Colin. I feel fully heard.
Okay. I will choose Cara.
I need to step away for a few minutes.
Thanks.
First of all, if my mic is still causing problems, I'll switch to my headphones. It's just that it doesn't block out noise from my neighbors as well. So just well, anyone can let me know at any time if there's problems with the mic.
So I hear that you're willing to switch out earbuds, even though it doesn't block the neighbor's sound. If it keeps cutting out, as a side, it is cutting out, but so far I can hear you.
Okay, I'm going to change right now.
Changing.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I met with Edwin and with Cara on Tuesday, and we talked a little bit about the situation with the self-empathy piece and whether I would take it over in Priyanka's absence.
So I heard that you and me and Edwin spoke on Tuesday, and one of the discussion pieces was you picking up the empathy piece and your willingness to do so.
So for me, it's just it was important that we discussed it here in the team and that everyone was aware of the proposal for me to take it over and to give everyone the chance to comment on it. So I'm glad that everyone raised it at the beginning of the meeting.
And what was really important for you was to create the transparency with everybody so everyone knew what was going on before it could move forward. And you're really grateful that Edwin brought it up first thing.
Right. I was always interested in the self-empathy part of the Defining Empathy project. And at the beginning, it was Priyanka who invited me along to work with her on the self-empathy piece. And for whatever reason, it didn't work out. So the interest was always there, and it's still there.
So you were always interested in the self-empathy piece, and Priyanka invited you and brought you along, and you were on board. And with whatever happened, you're still interested in working on this piece.
Right. And I know I wasn't at the actual session itself when she presented, but that was something I agreed with or ran past Edwin beforehand because I didn't want there to be any tension while she was presenting. So I wasn't at her actual presentation of her self-empathy piece, but I have looked at the recording since then.
And you chose not to be at the presentation so that you could give her her space so that she could feel comfortable presenting, but you have watched it since then.
Right. And I've listened to all of your comments, and I have taken my own notes, and I think that I can take it further, take it to the next step, if that's what the group agrees.
And if the group agrees that you have seen our notes and you have taken your own and you do think that you could take it to the next place.
Right. Yeah, I feel fully heard. Thank you.
I will speak with Jana. On this topic, I think it's excellent that somebody's willing to pick it back up when there is tension. It is very common as a human being to kind of lean away from it and not want to. So the fact that Colin is willing to be like, yep, no, I'll pick up that drop ball. I got it. I appreciate that.
So you appreciate that Colin is willing to pick up the piece of self-empathy, and that usually commonly people will just say, oh no, I don't want to have anything to do with that, but Colin is willing to step in and pick it up, and you appreciate that.
I do, because I love it and I don't want to do it. So I'm glad that he does.
You love self-empathy, but you don't want to do it.
Yeah. And really, that's all I have to say on that. I think that this needs to take a, oh, I do think that a break would be good. I think not a long one is necessary, but I do think a little break would be good.
And you also agree that a break, not a long break, but a break would be helpful.
Yeah. And then returning from the break, one of the thoughts I had was to focus on, rather than doing a different project every week or every other week, like spending a month just doing 4 sessions on the definition, and then a month and just really work chew one piece up until we're done with it, and then move on to the next.
And your suggestion is, instead of going week by week, topic by topic, that we just spend a month, 4 sessions on each topic, and that we work it out till it looks good, and then we move on to the next one.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Lou's not here. DJ, you want to listen to me?
Sure, go ahead, Jana. I'm listening.
Yeah, I'll reach out to Priyanka to see if she's open to a buddy call. And I'm happy that Colin is picking up the self-empathy piece.
So you're going to reach out to Priyanka, see if she wants a buddy call, and you're happy that Colin is taking up the self-empathy piece.
Yeah, and Kara connected with me twice. We tried to set up a buddy call, but she sends me this business link for scheduling, and I have no idea what to do with it. So I'm so sorry that I don't know what to do with it. I'm technically challenged there.
So you're sharing that you're perhaps a bit technologically challenged, because you and Kara have tried to set up 2 buddy calls, and there's some kind of business link that you can't operate.
Yeah, we tried twice to set up one. Yeah, and in terms of the scheduling, because it's on Friday, I can't participate, any more than just showing up and being a kibitzer. I don't know if you know the word kibitzing, but it's like the one who is talking from the So, I don't know if anyone wants to think about a different day or time, but I'm willing to continue to show up like this.
So you're talking about the continuation of this defining empathy group, and you're really just a kibitzer if it's going to be on Fridays, because you're usually working. And if everybody's okay with you being a kibitzer and continuing in that frame, then that would be great. Or perhaps we could discuss an alternative time and day.
Yeah, and Colin was interested in, we had a buddy, Colin was interested in altruism and empathy. And I'm interested in that. I'm not sure like if the benefits of empathy and altruism and empathy, or if they could be combined and if they belong in a defining empathy course or not. But I would like to pursue that. I'll pause there.
Okay, so you had a buddy call with Colin, and the two of you both share an interest in altruism. You're not really sure if that fits in with this particular course, but it sounds like you and Colin might want to add it.
Right, well, Colin told me that he's overbooked with self-empathy. So I thought to offer, if anyone wants to do maybe a book club with one of Mathieu Ricard's books, like Altruism or Happiness, I'd be willing to do that with someone, an empathy circle book club on altruism or happiness by Mathieu Ricard. I'm saying the French way, Mathieu Ricard. I'll put his name in here.
So you're putting the name of the author in the chat, Ricard, R-I-C-A-R-D, which is a French name, and you're pronouncing it in a French way. And he has some books on altruism and happiness, I believe you said. And you're wondering if maybe you could have an empathy circle concentrating on those books, like a book club empathy circle.
Yeah, so maybe someone or someone else would like to do it with me. I'm almost out of time. And so also I haven't yet listened to the 2 hours on fantasy, which I am hoping to do.
You haven't listened to the 2 hours on fantasy, which you're hoping to do. Do you mean imagining?
Imagining, whatever it is, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and thank you, I feel heard.
Okay, great. I don't think, Lou, you're not back, right, Lou? Okay, Edwin, will you be my listener? Okay, great. Hold on just one second.
I just put the page in for notes if you want to take any notes from the meeting.
All right. Well, this, for me, this time of year, I think is very tiring and fatiguing. And I'm really feeling like I want to slow down, but I can't seem to slow down.
Yeah, this time of year is fatiguing and tiring, and you're wanting to really slow down, but just can't seem to.
Yeah, but I think it's a good idea to have a break and to keep it short so we don't lose our momentum. I think there's great momentum here. I think that we're making, well, I personally, speaking for myself, I feel like I'm making breakthroughs here.
So speaking for yourself, you really feel you're making progress and breakthroughs. So you'd like to take a break, but also not too long so we can keep the momentum going.
Right, because I really love the momentum here. I love the people here. But I'm also really open to the idea of expansion and retraction and, just kind of letting people kind of float in and out. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with Jana being a kibbutz or whatever it was. I'm sorry.
So sort of a looser format where people can drop in and drop out, you think could, you don't have anything against that. I think it can work, and you're fine with Jana being a kibbutzer.
I don't know if I have that right. I'm sorry, Jana. But I did, as sort of a side note, work on completing 2 presentations about relational empathy, since I promised a report, an analysis of what we did as a brainstorm. But I'm okay with pretending like I didn't do that.
Oh, you had said you would do a report on, you had a model you were going to set up, and you're okay that you didn't end up doing that.
Well, I haven't done it yet. I did prepare it.
Okay, you started it, but
No, it's finished.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
so I actually have two parts that I finished. I mean, they're not like finished, like, oh my gosh, I'm done, but I mean, they're ready to share. And like maybe more private, like not necessarily recorded level.
Okay, so you have two pieces finished, and they're would share those sort of privately, and don't feel ready to have it be recorded sort of publicly.
Right, exactly. I don't know if I'll ever be ready for that, Edwin, to be honest with you. But I do want to share it. If I can, we could just do the pragmatic kind of aspect, which is just sort of like my quick analysis of what we did, kind of truncated.
So you really do want to share those, maybe a truncated version of it.
Right. Well, I have two presentations. One is already truncated. So I could do a truncated of the truncated, I suppose.
So you've got one of them is truncated. You could do a truncated version of the truncated one. So to present that.
Right. Or I could do both, but one of them is very, I don't know what the right word is, but something like esoteric.
Yeah. So one is kind of esoteric. You're not quite sure if that's the right word for it.
Right. So I feel fully heard. Thank you, Edwin.
Okay.
I can't stay.
Okay.
If I could talk for 30 seconds or a
Yeah,
minute about,
sure.
so I'm sorry, I can't stay, just too much going on here.
Yeah.
So yeah, in terms of the work, so I think it's been really interesting. I've learned a lot. The work that I wound up doing on blocks, which, this week I actually sat down and mapped out, I thought, a lesson on that. And that actually was very productive. I think I came up with something really good. So I look forward to sharing that sometime. I think that, well, I haven't heard the rest of the conversation, so I'm not sure what the thread is. On the thing about the conflict with Priyanka, which was the part that I did here, I think trying to establish ground rules is a good idea, but I also know that if there isn't enough trust, or there's too much hurt, then people they're not gonna participate. She's not engaging either because she's super busy and doesn't have time, or doesn't want to spend the time, or she doesn't trust that it's going to go well, or a combination of those things. So you can have ground rules, but it's no guarantee that someone's going to be willing to participate, and as it should be. I mean, no one should be forced to. The empathy circle process is a voluntary process. I have been in situations where there's bad conflict and someone won't participate, and so the people who do want to participate do something, and they do a recording of it, and they send that to the person, and so then the person can see what is happening, and sometimes that has a positive influence on them. It's a way for them to hear what's going on with other people without the risk of coming, and whatever risk that represents to them. Was there another question that you wanted me to respond to?
Colin doing the self-empathy. So I guess it was the other.
Sure. Yes. Yeah.
And what about the continuing, Lou?
Schedules.
Yes, I'd be willing to continue. Yes, I'd be willing to continue. I think taking a break is a good idea. I do think, yeah. So I agree with taking a break, and yes, I'd be willing to do more sessions.
How long of a break?
Probably at least 3 weeks, I would say. Okay. And I'll just say, I really enjoyed meeting all of you and listening to all of you, and learning with you, and I look forward to more time together. Yeah. And I'm sorry I got to go, but I do. All right.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Out there, Lou.
Okay.
Okay, then speak to Colin.
Yes.
Yeah, just looking at the schedule, we definitely want to take maybe next week off, November 25th and December 23rd, being the holidays. We have Thanksgiving here next week, which I don't know if I don't have that, something like that in the UK.
So you're suggesting that next week we take a break because it's Thanksgiving in the US, and also December 23rd, which is Christmas, just before Christmas.
And yeah, just thinking of the schedule. I guess before I go much more into the schedule, I like the whole process that we're doing, kind of this exploration and sort of this iterative approach. And Kara's idea of focusing on one topic now, one lesson, kind of like that too, to really dig into it deeper and work on getting the lesson sort of more finalized. I think that would help.
So you like the iterative process that we're going through, but also the suggestion that Cara made where we focus on one topic for a length of time to really go deeper and finish it.
And I was just looking at the schedule, thinking since we have with the schedule, we have we have the holidays kind of in here. Yeah, I'm not quite sure of what I hear Lou say 3 weeks off. I'm not sure. I'm curious how much time everyone wants off, but not to lose the momentum. So I would be fine with between Thanksgiving and then Christmas, doing some empathy cafes on maybe some topics, and then picking up, the 7-week series after Christmas.
Okay, so you have some concerns about this break that we're going to take. You're suggesting that maybe between the 25th of November and the 23rd of December, we could have a few empathy cafes, and then in the new year, pick up the 7-week cycle that we're on.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure because that's actually 4 weeks between those 2 days. So yeah, I guess I'm a little not sure quite. I gotta think about an actual schedule. I'm kind of like I never get tired with empathy. It's like charge forward. So I people always say, oh, you got all this persistence. So I just kind of persist, so I'm good with persistence.
So I'm seeing you smile and hearing you laugh and talking about how much energy and passion that you have for empathy, and how persistence is something that you have in abundance, and that you don't feel yourself getting tired at the moment, but you're still respectful of the proposal to take a break.
Yeah, and it could be a few people take a break, and in the meantime, we do some empathy circles for those that want to take part, maybe on different topics, or I guess I'm kind of open. And then also to continue with our Tuesday call, which you and Kara and I've been doing. I found those very productive, helpful.
So you're flexible. If some people wanted to participate in an empathy cafe and others wanted to take the time off, and also for us and for Cara to continue on Tuesday's meeting.
Yep, I feel heard. Thanks.
I'll choose DJ. Is that okay? When you're ready. Okay. Yes, I would like a break also. The Friday evening isn't a great time for me. I'm really tired at the end of the week. But that's kind of a separate matter, but I am for a break. It's just a matter of the timing of the break for me.
So you're sharing that you do want to continue, and you think it's good to have a break, and it's Friday evening where you are. and you're often tired Friday evening. It sounds like you're still maybe okay with it.
Right, and it's the timing of the break that we take that's is what I'm thinking about. I'm perfectly okay with us taking a break next week because of Thanksgiving, even though here it's not celebrated. Around Christmas time is the time that I would most want a break. Christmas time and New Year, and the build up to Christmas also.
So you're okay with having the next Friday off, even though you don't celebrate Thanksgiving where you live. It sounds like you'd like to have a break until after the New Year.
And now that I hear you reflect that back to me, I think, well, maybe I should celebrate Thanksgiving in my own way, some kind of gratefulness exercise, something that's personal to me, because it doesn't sound so good when I hear that I don't celebrate Thanksgiving.
Yeah, perhaps you're going to rethink this idea of not celebrating Thanksgiving, because having some gratitude is good.
Yeah. And so what I'm hearing from Edwin before is that from his point of view, there is flexibility potentially over the coming weeks for people to take time off for themselves or to continue with empathy cafes. And so that might meet the diverse needs of the group.
So you're thinking that you agree with Edwin, that maybe over the next few weeks, it's going to be some empathy cafes, kind of a break from the defining empathy.
Mm. And if that was to happen, I'd probably just meet the once. So on the Tuesday with Cara and Edwin, rather than that plus the empathy cafe. That's just my thinking at the moment, but that could change.
So my understanding is that during the break, you would be attending the Tuesday meetings with Cara and Edwin, but not necessarily the empathy cafes on Fridays.
Right. Or one or the other. It wouldn't necessarily have to be the Tuesday meeting, but it would just be one or the other.
So one or the other during the break is satisfying to you.
Right. I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Violetta?
Pleasure.
Yeah, so I kind of feel like we've talked about the schedule enough, and that whatever happens, happens. I'm pretty cool about it. I don't do anything very exciting during the holidays.
So you're kind of not very focused on the schedule. Whatever happens, happens, and you're pretty much cool with everything.
Yeah, I try to go with the flow when I can.
You're going with the flow.
Yeah, whenever possible. So yeah, I think that even though this is being recorded, that I do want to share a little bit about my ideas about what happened with the conflict that happened before.
So you're aware that you're being recorded, but you do want to share some of your thoughts about the conflict we've been talking about.
Right. So generally speaking, I'm not comfortable with conflict.
So conflict is not comfortable for you. Sorry.
Generally speaking, yeah. And I always am so grateful that it's not directed towards me when it happens, if it's not directed towards me.
But whenever it's not directed towards you, you're pretty happy.
Well, I'm grateful.
Grateful.
I'm grateful. I'm not happy. It doesn't make me happy.
Mm-hmm.
It actually is offensive to me when people are taking a safe space and putting I don't know what the words are, but conflict, I guess, for lack of better words, like aggressiveness and anger. And it's like, why come to do that?
Mm. So you find it offensive when people bring aggressiveness and anger into a safe place.
Right, even though I'm human and I can get angry, I think the empathy circle, especially a defining empathy circle, is kind of like, not only are we an empathy circle, we're kind of trying to define it, that it needs some kind of parameters about if you're entering the circle and you're just super angry at someone in the circle and you're planning to go there and attack that person, maybe you should think twice about either A, not coming, or B, contacting Edwin or somebody else prior to coming and doing something that really is disturbing for everyone.
So some of the talk I'm hearing Michael around this place where we're doing the empathy circle. We're also trying to define empathy, and maybe when people come and they do have a conflict with somebody in the circle, it would be wise to reach out to Edwin or somebody else and try to work through it before coming into this particular safe place.
Yeah, and I know that I probably am speaking from a very traumatized individual because I've been traumatized since I can remember. And so, you know, being re-traumatized by other people creating more trauma in the world is something that I'm very highly sensitive to.
Mm. So as somebody who has been traumatized, you're very highly sensitive to re-traumatization for yourself, but also creating trauma in the world. So you're aware of that characteristic.
Right. And so just to wrap it up, I was very disturbed by the whole event.
Okay. So for you, it was disturbing. That's kind of your wrap up.
Thank you.
Okay. Kiara, would you mind being my listener, please?
I'm listening.
So many thoughts from the conflict through the process. I think, speaking for myself, going back to the break, I would beg for December to be completely off the table for this team. It would be very hard for me to find the energy and the time for various reasons. So that would be my plea. And if not, it doesn't happen, I'll just miss a meeting, and that's perfectly fine. But that's kind of my first thought.
You were overwhelmed at first with some thoughts, all the swirling thoughts that came from conflict and what that brings up. But what you wanted to focus on first is that you would really like to have December off, and kind of regardless of what the team picks, you may need to just take December off.
Yep. With regards to the conflict, I was raised with a moral principle that I followed my whole life, and it is do not talk behind people's backs. So I feel uncomfortable discussing this without Priyanka in the room, whatever we're talking about. But on the other hand, as Lou said, maybe she will be, if she wants to, she will be able to watch the recording. And if she feels like she could come back and rejoin the team, or at least rejoin the community, that'll be wonderful. But at this point, I don't think I could participate in further analysis of what happened.
And so you were raised with not speaking about people behind their back, and any conversation without her here makes you uncomfortable. And you're going to, until she is in a place where she might come back, you're ready to be not speak on it anymore.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I was trying to imagine your idea, Kara, about spending 4 weeks on one of the topics, because I think that was the other thing that was swirling. I'm somebody who gets easily bored. I know it's kind of somewhat, I might get bored after 2 weeks talking about one topic, but if I think there's also benefit to spending, to kind of digging deep and polishing a format, so that might work.
So you're thinking about the idea of doing a whole month on one topic, and you're a little concerned you might get a little bored, but you do see the benefit of diving deep into something and really chewing it up.
And just in case we need the verbal confirmation, just for Colin, I would love for him to take over self-empathy. So just wanted to put it out there.
For verbal confirmation, you 100% support Colin taking on the self-empathy.
Excellent. Thank you. I feel very fully heard. Thank you.
I will speak to who has not spoken recently. It's Colin or Jana, is that right? Yeah, let's go with Colin.
Sure.
You ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
And I've already said this. I love the idea of Colin you picking up the self-empathy. So, 2 verbal confirmations. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'm hearing from you, Cara, that you're happy for me to take up the self-empathy part of the Defining Empathy project.
Yep. As far as skipping days, okay, I'm going to throw some numbers out here. So I'm going to try and take it slow. But if you guys have calendars, you can follow along. So my thought is that we skip the 25th, for the American holiday, but then do a 3-week series in the middle, the 2nd, the 9th, and the 16th, where we're not really focused on any part of it, just kind of discussing the whole what next as a big group thing, so that people could jump in or not jump in as they want, because it's not moving anything specifically forward. It's just keeping the momentum happening. And then skipping again until we get to the new year on the 6th, giving us a 3-week break and then a whole month where we're not really doing coursework.
Right. So you're talking about how we might be able to take a break over the next over the holiday period. You're suggesting on the 25th of this month that we take a holiday for that. Then for the following 3 weeks that we meet just to keep the momentum going more than anything, and then we take another break until the 6th of January.
Yes, that's exactly it. And I don't think I have anything else to say, so thank you. I feel fully heard.
Okay. Jana, will you be a listener?
Sure.
So just to follow on from what Cara was saying, I would be okay with that proposal. It would meet my needs at least. And yeah, I think it's a good compromise for me at least.
So you think that every other week that Carol proposed is a good proposal? 3 sessions of discussing what's next. It works for you personally.
Right. Yes. I'm not sure if there's anything else I need to say on taking a break other than that. Oh yeah. About what Cara's proposal for going in depth on one part on a single part. So in other words, maybe a month or several weeks, and focusing in depth on one aspect. I like the idea, but I'm also thinking that we can doing things in tandem. There's a benefit there, which I'll elaborate on.
So, I'm sorry, I got a little distracted. I changed the view. Say again.
So I was talking about Cara's proposal of going in depth to one aspect of the project, doing it for a number of weeks, and then moving on to the next. I like the idea, but I also think it might be useful to do things in tandem. So one week that means alternating between the different aspects on different weeks.
So you like her proposal, Kara's proposal of doing a whole month on one topic before moving on, but you have another idea of doing something in tandem of alternating weeks so that we're coming back to the material, but developing it, different topic.
Yeah, I think that by continuing what we're doing at the moment, where we switch between the different aspects of empathy, that we can learn more along the way, and that we can then come to this kind of more uniform approach across all of the modules. We have a kind of follow a standard format. That's consistent.
So you actually like the way we're doing it now, every week a different topic, and you think that helps to create a uniform format for everything, if I understood.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say for now. I feel fully heard.
I really appreciate Lou's expression of appreciation, and I really share his appreciation for this group and for.
Who are you speaking to?
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know. Let's see. I changed the view, and I'm not used to it. Who am I speaking to? Edwin, you want to listen to me?
Okay. Yeah. So you're really appreciating what Lou was saying and appreciating this group.
And on the December 9th and on February 3rd, I'm not available, like on that imagining day where I'll at most be there for the last half hour or hour if I'm lucky.
So there's a couple of days that you're not available. December 9th, I think you said.
And February 3rd. Mm-hmm.
And February 3rd.
Mm-hmm. And what else? Yeah, I also like Lou's idea of sharing the video with Priyanka.
Yeah, and Lou's idea of sharing the video with Priyanka, you think is a good idea.
Yeah, and I also appreciate what Violetta said, because I really also try to practice that way, and it's not always possible. Sometimes talking about others isn't necessarily, I don't know how to say, it's a very difficult issue.
Yeah, talking about others is a difficult issue, and you try to practice what Violetta was saying about not talking about people if they're not there, but it sounds like it's more complicated too.
Right. Sometimes we're talking about ourselves in relation to others, and we interact with so many people, so you can't really talk about yourself without talking about others.
Yeah, when we're talking about ourselves, and it's like how we relate to other people. So if you want to talk about yourself, you have to kind of talk about how you're doing that relating with others. So I guess that's the complication in terms of not talking about others.
Right. So I think it's really more about the motivation. If you're trying to understand or trying to clarify or trying to be helpful, then that the motivation is sincere. I think that sometimes it's appropriate or at least acceptable. It's all right.
Yeah, so it's really have to look at the underlying motivation. Is it for clarity and for what's really the purpose of it? And if it has those, certain motivations, then it's okay.
Yeah, and then of course, if it's just to harm another person or ridicule the other person, or then of course I always speak up and I discourage that. When anyone is doing that, I'll say, don't do that.
Yeah, so if you're degrading someone, putting them down or something that behind their back, then you don't support that, and you actually speak up against that.
Yeah. And I don't know, there's a timer there. Yeah, I think I feel heard. Yeah, break, no break. I like Kara's idea of 3 weeks. I like the alternating idea, of 3 weeks. I like the or Edwin's idea of continuing is okay too, although there's not support for that. I like the idea of continuing and not having a full break, just having empathy circles to stay in touch. I like that idea.
Yeah, so you like the idea of having some empathy circles to stay in touch during that time. So you're just kind of juggling those different ideas about the schedule.
Yeah, and I feel fully heard. Thank you, Edwin.
Okay, great. Speak to DJ. Yeah, Jana has brought up, wait for the timer to come up. There it is. Jana has brought up the topic of altruism several times. And I don't think that topic fits in with the definition. You're muted.
So Jana's brought up the topic of altruism several times, and you're not really sure it fits in with the definition.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting topic and I'm interested in it, but there's only so much time that we have, and we can't kind of put everything into getting it into the definition.
So it's an interesting topic, and you just can't fit it in, can't fit everything in.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, having like book clubs and so forth, at the empathy circle, I've done book club empathy circles and they work fairly well. So that sounds like maybe a way to kind of explore that topic. But I do have some issues with Matthew Ricard too.
So you're mentioning that you do have a few issues with this author, Matthew Ricard, who's written the books Happiness and Altruism. I believe that Jenna mentioned about having a book club centering on that. And you actually think book clubs are great with empathy circles, and that's a great idea.
And Paul Bloom, who wrote the book Against Empathy, he quotes Matthew Ricard that he told Matthew Ricard's his Against Empathy kind of comments. And Matthew Ricard said, yeah, you're right. I'm glad you're saying all that. So he really agreed with Paul Bloom.
So from your understanding is that Matthew Ricard agrees with Paul Bloom, and Paul Bloom wrote the book Against Empathy and kind of rejecting the whole concept of empathy as a workable subject.
And it all comes down to what are we calling empathy, because the things that they're calling empathy, I don't see as empathy. It's the problem. And it's actually a block to empathy, the topic that they're talking about. So that's why I see that having a really clear definition is so important, for being able to have discussions with people like that.
So that's one of the purposes of defining empathy, is being able to have discussions with people who are rejecting empathy.
And having a really clear, articulated definition, and saying this is this way of being, here's the parts to it. And you're talking about altruism, or your concerns about empathy, and their definition of empathy is emotional contagion or state matching.
So you're interested in having this really clear definition so you can have discussions about these notions of emotional contagion or altruism that these sort of opposers are sort of embedded in.
Yeah, and once we have that definition, then it's clear, having that discussion is clear, because Matthew Ricard would say, oh, there's empathic concern, or concern in general, sympathy, and they go from that definition towards compassion and altruism, at least one form of altruism. And then just having that clarity, I think, would be really, really helpful.
Yeah, so it might include things like empathetic concern is part of the definition of empathy. And if they see that as a part of the way of being, or the beingness of being empathetic, they might be able to see how it relates to their definition of altruism in a different way, or compassion or sympathy in a different way, perhaps.
Yeah, and then also the emotional contagion, how that's not what we're calling empathy in terms of state matching. Like, I'm all angry, and then you respond with being all angry, and then they call that empathy. And it's just, that's actually blocking your ability to listen to me if I'm speaking. So anyway, that's why the definition is so important for having the discussions about all these other terms.
So you're trying to summarize it up, saying this empathy contagion is really what they're calling the empathy that they're against, and that's not really empathy at all. It's something that lacks the listening and the reflection of empathy, and it also has blocks to true empathy. And so it's really important to get this definition out there and get it solidified.
Yeah, I feel fully heard. Thanks. That was my time.
Okay, great. Yeah, sure. Wow. Well, yeah, I don't really think that I'm going to talk to Kara, I guess. Kara, I haven't talked to you in a while. Yeah, let me put the timer up. So I don't really think that there's real understanding that happens in empathy circles.
So you don't really think that there's true understanding that happens in an empathy circle?
Right. And I don't really think true understanding is possible.
And you're not really sure that true understanding is possible?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not.
You're pretty sure it's not?
I'm pretty sure it's not, but that's okay. Because empathy to me is not true understanding and pure understanding.
And that's okay, because empathy is not true understanding or pure understanding.
Exactly. Empathy is something that happens between people.
Empathy happens between two different people.
Right. Or between the self and the non-self. And that's what I did my presentation on. So I feel like I'm really, really into it, and I really understand it, and it resonates with me.
And it's so empathy is between self and other, and you did your whole presentation on it. So you dive deep and are very confident that this is factual.
For me, absolutely for me. I've never, ever had human understanding, complete human understanding. I never have, and I never will. And I'm okay with that because I'm an empathetic person and I can receive and give empathy. So to me, it's a separate thing.
And for you, it is 100% factual, and you have never understood a full understanding of humanity and never intend to, which is fine because you can still exchange empathy, and they're different.
That's not what I said. So I'm an individual self.
You are an
and in
individual
order
self.
to, yes, and to be understood in my individual selfness by another individual selfness is 100% impossible.
So as your individual selfness, to be understood by another individual selfness is impossible.
Right. So there's mutuality in our inability to be 100% understanding of one another.
And there is mutuality in that inability to 100% understand the other.
That's why acceptance matters, respect matters, and empathy matters, right?
And that's why the respect matters, the empathy matters, that, what was the other? Acceptance matters.
And awareness matters.
And awareness.
Yeah, so what happens, I think, a lot of times in the empathy circle, without intentionality, is that people assume they understand what the other person means.
And so what happens a lot in an empathy circle is that without the intentionality, people assume that they know what the other person means.
Right. So there's the reflecting back,
So there's
which
the reflection,
requires listening.
which requires listening.
But the actual understanding of what is said may be lacking.
But the actual understanding of what the other person is saying may be missing.
It may be lacking.
May be lacking.
Yes, and we would like spend so much time ad nauseum, to really get into the deep dive of everything everyone says all the time.
And we could go ad nauseum, deep dive into what exactly everybody says and means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we just can't do that.
And that's unrealistic.
Thank you. I feel fully heard.
Violetta, I don't think I've talked to you at all today. Hi. You have to unmute.
Sorry, because, I talked to you, but now you have not. Right.
I'm not really sure if there's anything in specifically that we're still discussing, but one thing that is alive for me in the conversation of talking about other people.
I'm not sure there's a specific topic we're kind of trying to discuss, but there's something that's alive for you, and it's about understanding other people.
Seems to be a phone interference somewhere.
There is an echo.
A real echo, yeah, suddenly.
So if your phone is near the computer, maybe move it away. Somebody.
I have mine. Maybe that's what it was. No.
You kind of sound like you're in a tunnel. That's interesting.
Me?
Yeah.
Huh.
Okay.
Maybe I am in a tunnel. I don't know.
Doesn't bother me. So one of the things that I hold very true in leadership is that it is okay to speak about somebody's behavior, like observables, provided you don't try and understand the why behind their back.
So you're going to your leadership trainings, and there's something that you talk about in those trainings, and it's about talking about people's observables, outward behavior, but without trying to ascribe specific reasons why that happens.
Because I tend to have a assumed positive intent of other people. I genuinely believe that people are the hero of their own story and are not out there just trying to be a jerk.
You have that proclivity to ascribe positive intentions, but also you genuinely believe that people are the hero of their own story, and no one is really going out there trying to be deciding I'll be a jerk today.
Now, just because that's not our intent does not mean that's how it manifests in our behavior.
So you don't think that's the intent for most people, but sometimes that's truly what's manifested in behavior.
And so, especially in the situation with Pralonka, I don't think anything has to do with her as a person. But I do think, and we should never discuss that portion without somebody present.
So you're going back to the situation with Priyanka, and you agree that we should never try to discuss her person and personality, or what may be wise when she's not here.
But I think the behavior is absolutely something that has to be addressed. There was a setting down of a topic, and somebody has to then pick it up, and that is a just very tangible behavior that has to be discussed.
But there's also behavior there that needs to be discussed, and you're referring to setting down a topic that somebody else needs to pick up afterwards.
Yeah, and I think that as a standard for me, with all people, that is just how if the person is not present, I will discuss observable behaviors, and everything else waits till you're around that person.
So back to the conversation about whether we could talk about the situation, you would definitely discuss the behavior, but absolutely everything else would have to wait until the person is present.
Yep, I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Everyone, would you mind listening to me?
Yeah,
please?
sure. Your audio, there is a real echo. I don't know if it's
I'm so sorry.
if there's anything, you could turn it off, turn it on, try to see if that'll,
Can you log out and log in? Maybe that would help.
Is that better?
I'm not
No?
sure, I don't think so.
Okay, let me leave the
Okay.
room and I'll be back. Is that any better?
Oh, yeah, made a big difference.
I think when I'm trying to take notes and then go back to the Zoom screen, something's happening. Okay.
Okay.
I would love to speak about the possibility of being understood, and that probably refers to in the empathy conversation about accuracy of empathy. And while I fully agree with DJ that 100% is not a possibility, we could never fully understand another person's subjectivity because that means living ours, and that is impossible. But I think we could connect and the knowledge that would be accumulated through the experience will be a valid knowledge. So that's an epistemology that is rooted in phenomenology. Phenomenology comes and says we could actually know things, unlike what Kant would say, we can only know our perception of things. So the difference with epistemology is that it could start from my experience and accumulate an actual knowledge. In the intersubjective experience, it's a knowledge about the other. I'm sorry.
So you want to get into the philosophy of understanding others, and you're saying there's sort of a different grounding. One philosopher says you can't understand, you can only understand through yourself, and the other says that you can have that understanding of others.
Without it ever being 100%.
Oh, without it being 100%, but you can have some understanding.
And Edwin and I have had many conversations like this, but I would love to share with the group how I see the connection between emotional contagion and empathy. And the way I see it is that emotional contagion is an underdeveloped empathy. Developmentally in our lives, we start with emotional contagion, but as we accumulate skills to reflect, we're able to do a more mature version of empathy.
And you also want to address the emotional contagion that I'd brought up before, that you're saying that emotional contagion is a sort of a basic early form of empathy, and there's more sophisticated forms on top of that.
This is where my research has taken me, and I'm definitely an open system, inviting more and more new data to come in and enrich. I'm very curious, but this is where these are my premises at this particular moment where I stand.
Yeah, you have these premises. That's where your research is taking you, and you're open for modification to it too.
Thank you, Edwin. I feel fully heard.
Okay, I'll speak to Jana then. Yeah, I also don't see that we can totally 100% understand someone, but it seems to me that empathy is sort of this process of understanding the other person. So it's you never can get there 100%, but it's a process.
So for you, understanding is a process, and maybe we're not actually achieving 100%, but through empathy, gradually we can develop more and more understanding.
And the goal of the empathy circle is for the speaker to feel heard and understood to their satisfaction. So it's like, I'm not expecting you to 100% know my full sense of who I am, but yeah, you kind of got me. So it's sort of, that's the I guess I don't know, what is that? That's the goal or whatever is for me to feel heard by you, for example, to the point that I feel satisfied, that you got me good enough that I feel happy.
So the point of the empathy circle of the empathic listening is to allow a person to feel heard to their satisfaction. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that you got me 100% understand me, but that I, to my satisfaction, like you got me, and that was satisfying to me.
Yeah, I see myself sort of mirrored in what you're mirroring what I'm saying, and there's something about that mirroring that, oh yeah, I feel like I'm sort of have that resonance that you're sort of resonating with me.
And so as I'm speaking, you're feeling this kind of mirroring of you, and you're feeling that as I'm mirroring you, you feel that I'm resonating with you.
Yeah, and it feels good. I think it's a healthy sort of a process that sort of moves aside a lot of conflict or misunderstanding, but it's not 100%. It's just, but it can go deeper. I have seen the emotional resonance, go deeper and deeper too.
So this mirroring feels good to you. It feels okay, but you've also seen it go deeper and deeper and deeper with deep emotional resonance as well, that it's possible.
Yeah, and the emotional contagion part is, I would say, sort of emotional mirroring through mirror neurons. That if I have a feeling, and I see someone sort of doing something, I mirror their feeling as well, so I can sense the other person's emotions because the mirror neurons are firing as well. So if I feel angry, there's neurons that are firing for all the anger, that feeling of anger, and feeling it in my whole body. If I see someone else with anger, those same neurons fire in my brain. And so I actually feel that sense of anger that the other person has. So that's sort of and the emotional contagion is, I see a real emotional contagion is the person is angry and then you totally become angry, versus you are able to stay sort of present with the other person, be able to still reflect back their anger to them. That's a lot, I know, but.
So you're explaining about mirror neurons and about how, and the emotional contagion that arises as a result of mirror neurons, that if you're in the presence of somebody who's angry, then you feel the anger. But do you, emotional contagion is also when somebody, someone's angry and you immediately respond with the anger to the other person, and you're not like pausing and self-aware and reflecting or
and sensing into them. If you're angry and I'm sensing into you, I reflect back your anger and I sense into you more deeply, like past the anger, right? It's like, what's causing the anger? Why is the anger there? And I just keep sensing into, and that's the empathy, is that sensing into.
So for you, empathy is sensing into that when somebody's experiencing anger and you feel the anger, you become aware of it, and then you express that empathy, or you share that you're aware, and you want to maybe help the person or be there for them, sense into them, be totally present there for them with their experience.
Yeah, I would say that's accurate, except I didn't use the word help them. So I'm not doing it per se as helping. So just sensing into, and I feel heard with that.
Okay. And I didn't perfectly reflect because I added a word helping that you take exception to. And I can't see the timer here because I've moved. Is that it?
Oh, that was it. That was, yeah, I felt fully heard. That was my time.
Okay, and I can choose someone. Violetta, I haven't spoken to you.
Is my audio okay now? Because I'm okay.
Yeah, I really appreciate Edwin bringing up the topic of altruism and Maturikar.
You're happy to hear that altruism was discussed. Edwin brought it up.
Yeah, and his difficulty with Maturikar, kind of dissing empathy.
And specifically Maturikar definition of empathy and Edwin's difficulty with it.
Mm-hmm. And so one, I'd like to suggest that Edwin interview Maturikar.
Firstly, you want to suggest that there's an interview that happens between Edwin would interview Maturikar.
Yeah, if that would be possible, because he's, Maturikar is like super famous and busy. But also that would be a wonderful reason to read actually altruism and Maturikar as altruism, the book, to discuss what's being presented there, because the idea of altruism is very important. That it seems to me that the problem with defining empathy is kind of minor for what Maturikar is saying. We can just translate that as state contagion.
Okay, your first concern was in case Edwin could get on the schedule of somebody that's so busy as Hikari is, but also the conversation is about how important is the definition of empathy. State matching is what Edwin sees it, then that would be it. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure I understood the rest of what you said. I'm sorry.
What I'm saying is that altruism is a really important topic, and altruism in relation to empathy is really important. So not to, miss out on what Maturikar is saying, because Maturikar has a minor part. He occasionally, will say, "Oh, empathy is state contagion," and he prefers the word compassion. But I think that's a trivial part of the topic of altruism in relation to empathy.
Okay, so you think the topic that Maturikar is talking about is bigger than just defining empathy, and even if it is state matching, the overall topic of what is altruism and how it relates to empathy is still very important.
Right, like what we're defining as empathy is what Maturikar would call compassion.
Oh, so you think that our definition of empathy is his definition of compassion?
Yeah, and what he's calling empathy is state contagion. So as if we're reading altruism, if we're reading his book, then when he says, there might be a problem with empathy, we can just translate that state contagion and we get his point.
So when we're reading that particular book, if we could just replace what he talks about when he talks about empathy with state contagion, and when he talks about compassion with empathy, then we would still have a lot of important, then we will have a lot of important topics to bring into our discussion.
Yeah, I think that there's basically agreement with Maturikar and, Edwin and empathy. And, there's a lot of, it's mainly agreement, it's how to be kind, how to be, how to be a good person.
Mm-hmm. So for you, it's mostly agreement, how to be a good person, how to be kind, whether we talk about empathy or compassion.
Yeah, the problem is more semantic, I think.
Mm-hmm. In this particular case, you see it as a semantic problem.
Yeah, I feel fully heard. Thank you.
You're welcome. Colin, would you be? Okay.
I will, yes.
Okay. I'm partially surprised we're going back to a very basic discussion, but probably I shouldn't be. So we're going back to what is empathy and how it relates to not only what we're doing here, but how it relates to that wider conversation about empathy that's happening kind of worldwide.
So you're expressing your surprise that we're going back to the basics of what is empathy in this wider conversation in the outside world?
But that means we need to. And that being said, I have not read the Matthew Ricard's book. I have not read anything by him, so I'm not quite sure how to think of that. But I would love to get to hear more and get educated.
So you're saying that because there must be a need there, because we're talking about this, a need for more clarity on what empathy is. You haven't read the book yourself, but it sounds like you're interested in doing so.
Edwin will correct me when his turn comes, but I think one of the main impetuses, if that's the role of impetus, but one of the main motives behind this whole project that we're doing together is to take the linguistic ambiguity as much as possible out of the picture, so we could use the same language to talk about empathy.
So you're talking about what's at the heart of the whole Defining Empathy project, and it's really about getting more understanding around the language of empathy and what it is.
So whenever we share our product with the world, our team will say, we invite everyone else to use this particular language. We would invite everybody to define empathy, including Matthew Ricard, to define empathy the way we define it, if you agree with it, if you find it valuable.
So we're making an invitation to anyone who joins the Empathy Circle movement to, make a decision on our definition of what empathy is.
Even if it's just a linguistic kind of jump, where we are right now is that Batson's article about 8 things called empathy, or some later articles that are trying to do that definition clearer, they're all saying these are all wonderful phenomena, pretty much what Jana was saying. There's compassion is amazing, altruism is very important. We all want to be kind, helpful people, altruistic people. But when we talk specifically about empathy, what do we mean? That's kind of at the root of what this project is about.
So there's lots of different phenomena out there: compassion, kindness, altruism, but we're focused on what empathy means.
Yeah, at least that's how it is, how I've been hearing it so far. That's how I've been thinking joining the project, kind of coming out of this multiplicity of labeling phenomena, and not because not necessarily one definition is the right one, but just to reach an agreement. When we talk about empathy, what exactly do we mean? When we talk about compassion, what exactly do we mean? Okay, I'm sorry.
Right. And so, yeah, your reason for joining the project was to be able to come to some common agreement on what empathy is. It's not that everyone has to agree with it. Other people can have different ideas of what it is, but that we come to some kind of consensus within our circle.
Excellent. Thank you, Colin. Feel free to hear.
Thank you. I will go to we're going to maybe Cara, maybe, if you don't mind. I'm going to bring my gratitude exercise 1 week forward and say that I'm really grateful for everyone being accepting of me taking over the self-empathy piece. It's not a given. I wasn't assuming that would be the case, and that's why I wanted to bring it into today's call.
I hear that you are very grateful that we got to have that discussion, and that everyone is confident in you picking that piece up. Yes.
And I'm also observing that I don't feel judged by anyone on the team, which is a big relief, because all you know is that there was this conflict and you don't know any of the detail behind it. And I can't really even talk about it because I feel cautious about talking about it, other than directly to Edwin at the time that it happened.
So I heard that you were concerned on how that might present because no one here knew the specifics of what was going on. And you didn't feel judged or looked down on in any way.
Yeah, so there's a lot of unknowns, and also for me, there's a lot of unknowns because I don't really understand what the hell went on. And I'm just, my door is open, but if Priyanka was to come back into the group, we would have to have resolved the conflict beforehand.
And for you, there's still a lot of unknown, which is uncomfortable. And should she join back in, that would have to be addressed so that this could maintain a safe space.
Right. I do appreciate what you were saying before, Cara, about giving feedback on observed behavior, because this is something that you did on Tuesday. And when you did that with me, just purely doing that, giving feedback on observed behavior from Priyanka's side and from my side, I found that it was very, it's not possible to be totally objective, but it was as objective as it could be. And I felt validated by it.
So you enjoyed the practice we did where we just discussed the observable behaviors. It allowed you to feel seen and heard and still left the unknown on the table, but felt validating anyway.
And, you know, this whole incident has also helped in my own personal growth, because it has given me more faith in the empathy circle. When I went into the breakouts after that time, you know, when Priyanka came into the group, my heart was beating a million miles an hour. I couldn't breathe properly, and I was sensing into these feelings and sharing them with the group. This being reflected back, and it was calming me down, and I felt more connected and understood. So this is a positive that has come out of it for me.
And for you, the positive that came out of this experience is that you have a renewed faith in how the empathy circle went. You went into a breakout in a place of distress and was able to live it verbally and in your body, which alleviated it.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say, you know, this has been recorded, and if Priyanka does want to talk things through somehow, then my door is open.
And then for the record, you would like to leave with that your door is open.
Yeah, I feel fully heard.
Who have I not talked to? Have I talked to Jana yet? Show me my listener.
Sure.
Okay. I really enjoy these sessions.
We love these sessions.
I just enjoy them. I don't, when it comes to humanity, I don't know that there is any real way that we can define certain aspects of what we are doing. But I'm learning more and more that the definition doesn't stop us from being.
So regarding what we're doing as human beings, you can't always define it, but I'm not sure. But you don't think that the definition will stop us from being?
And I am finding that these empathy circles allow us to be together and try and define things. But really what it allows us to do is be together.
So most preciously, what the empathy circle allows is for us to just be together. And even if we don't succeed in defining, we can try to define, but we might not succeed.
And sometimes the ad nauseum portion of trying to talk something out, even without any solution, the act of doing that helps kind of unpack things.
So even though we might try to do that, you know, ad nauseum to define, you know, just the engaging in that, trying to define that, that interaction is what?
Kind of allows us to unpack.
Allows us to unpack.
Which means that we're not carrying around so much by ourselves.
Which means that we're not alone carrying by ourselves.
Because we're carrying it together.
Because we're carrying together. Thank you.
And that for me is a good way of being.
And that for you is a wonderful way of being.
I feel fully heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Who hasn't heard me for a while? DJ heard me at the beginning. Here, you get another turn. Here you go. Well, I guess I would argue, and some basis, that altruism brings happiness.
You would argue that altruism brings happiness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and in this practice of empathy and listening and doing our best that the other feels heard, that we're opening our hearts, and actually it's an altruism practice.
So what we're doing in the empathy circle, we're listening and being heard, is actually an altruism practice.
Yeah, it's a practice of many things. It's an equanimity practice. Which means kind of having an unbiased view towards everyone equally.
It's also an exercise in equanimity and many things that empathy and altruism are similar.
Yeah, equanimity means having an unbiased view towards everyone.
Equanimity means having an unbiased view towards everyone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It means that we can hear and listen and reflect anyone who shows up here.
It means we can hear, listen, and reflect anyone who shows up.
Yeah, no matter what they're bringing up.
No matter what they're bringing up.
Yeah, so that's a practice of equanimity, of equalizing, of our common humanity.
It's equalizing of our common humanity.
Yeah, and you know, for difficult things, like if we were to do like truth and reconciliation, for example, you know, dealing with, you know, pain and trauma and, you know, persecution and aggression, there needs to be a container to allow that process.
So for instance, if we are doing truth and reconciliation and talking about trauma, there needs to be a container for that to happen.
Mm-hmm. Where we might not be condoning actions, but we're not condemning people.
We're not condoning actions, but we're not condemning people.
Yeah, and I feel fully heard. Thank you.
And you feel fully heard. I mean, am I going to be able to do my presentations, or? I mean, I did prepare.
You're doing it today? Did you mean it today?
Well, that's what you said last week for me to do it. That you said to do it at the beginning, but that's when Lou and Crystal were going to do blocks too, and they're not here. So I did prepare them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I totally forgot about it. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
So
I tried to mention it.
Do you want to? I didn't realize you were. Oh, I didn't realize that's what you were saying, that you want to present it today. So yeah, is this enough time? We got 20 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I hope so. Yeah, so you're very sweet, Edwin. I just want you to know that I think you're very sweet.
You mentioned blocks, so can I say something out of turn?
Yeah, I think
No, absolutely not.
we're kind of opening it up now. We have 22 minutes, so we can kind of.
Yeah, so I was going to do my presentations, and it's
Yeah.
probably going to take at least 15 minutes.
Okay.
So the one thing I'd like to focus on or contribute in this defining empathy process is in the blocks, the projection, just that little piece. And I'd like to somehow either just take it and go with it or work with Crystal and Lou, whoever's working on blocks.
Yeah, that would be a good to bring it in with them, because that's projection's a big one, big block.
And I guess DJ's coming back.
Yeah, I'm still here. I just was taking a swig of my orange juice. Just
I
sharing
gave
you that.
a co-host, so you should be able to share anything. If you're
Okay,
on your
good. Yeah,
screen.
I'm going to share 2 MP4s that I made in Canva. The first one I'm going to share with you, I'm just going to ask you to open up your mind. Just open up your mind. That's all I'm going to ask you to do. It's just going to be a visceral thing. So forget everything and just kind of relax into it. It's not going to be perfect, but if I wait until something's perfect, it'll never happen. Okay, so I'm going to show you that first. And then at the end of that, it should segue kind of naturally into the review of our brainstorm and our cluster. And I did put it into some kind of paradigm and some kind of schematic based on my skills as an anthropologist. So hopefully you'll come on this ride. It'll just be a ride, just like getting on a roller coaster maybe, but more relaxed, more, in the mantra, and just kind of just relax into it. And then at the end, maybe put a word in the chat or whatever. If you really feel you want to interrupt me and interject something, that's cool. That's cool. Okay. But we don't have a lot of time. And it's really something that I just created to kind of share with you where I'm at right now. It's not like finished, okay? It's not like ready for real time. So can you stop recording, please? Thank you, appreciate that. It'll just take me one